Hello everybody, welcome to 2023, and this video is going to be my goals video for the year because you know me, I love setting me some goals at the beginning of the year. I also love setting some goals mid-year and at the end of the year. I'm just a fan of goal setting, okay? Last year I didn't actually make any goals for the entire year. I made some pre-baby goals at the beginning of the year and then my classic home stretch goals towards the end of the year. Actually, when I'm filming this, I have no idea if I've completed all of my home stretch goals because one, I can't remember what they were, and two, it is still 2022 at the time of filming this. But if you're curious to know how I got on with those, then become a patron and ask me about it and we can chat about the end of year goals in the Discord server. But this video is going to be my goals for 2023 and they are basically all work related, so you can get a sense of my priorities for the year and projects that we are planning and how things potentially might be changing over on the Hannah Witton channel and with the podcast and etc, etc, etc. So this is me just setting all of my intentions and we can see what actually happens. What fun. So I have split this up into sections, starting with the Hannah Witton brand. Yes, the whole thing. One of the things that we've actually already started the process on, but it is going to take a couple of months, is doing a big branding and design and like visual identity overhaul. Not overhaul. Spruce up, a little zhuzh. We're definitely still keeping a lot of the colors and the branding and fonts and whatever and things, but we're just getting a professional designer to take a look at it all and make it more cohesive, like add different elements. I just want like everything across the YouTube channels, my newsletter, Patreon, the podcast, all to kind of be really clear that they're all part of the same like universe, like the Hannah Witton universe or whatever, but also having their own identities. I'm falling out of love with a lot of the fonts that we've been using and everything has just needed a bit of a spruce up for a while, and so we're just going all in and doing the whole thing. And as part of that, also want to get some updated headshots because it has been a while since I've had those done, and the headshots that I use on both of my YouTube channels are from, I want to say like 2019, I think they're from. But because my hair keeps getting like longer and shorter, like every few years they become relevant again. So like as soon as I cut my hair, it's like, oh, these headshots will work again, even though I'm 27 in them. So I am very excited for this. I'll probably post some kind of like behind the scenes work in process stuff on my Patreon and also maybe in my newsletter. But hopefully in a few months' time, you will see all of the fruits of our labor. Next category is YouTube videos, these things here that you are watching now. So we want to start making some more ambitious videos on the Hannah Witton channel, so the sex education channel. This is going to hopefully involve a bit more out and about stuff, meeting different people, talking to lots of people and like visiting places and doing interesting things. I really loved doing the breast and vulva casting one that we did last year, and that video also did really well. It was so fun, like doing a trip to Brighton and visiting somebody in their studio and like getting to do kind of like a hands-on activity whilst also like talking about boobs and vulvas and pregnancy and breastfeeding and body image and like all of these things. And so how can we kind of do that with lots of other topics and different places and different people? So hopefully that's something that you'll be seeing in the future, some different videos out and about. This next goal is a really vague goal, but it's developing some kind of shorts strategy because I've heard that shorts is going to be monetized from February, so it actually might be worth doing. Yay. I mean, you know, if you pay me, YouTube, to make the things, then maybe I will use your stuff. But also because it's now going to be monetized, there's the element of like, that's probably what YouTube is going to be pushing loads. And it already is pushing it loads. And I'm just really behind. And I want to kind of like get better at being like, okay, what could we actually make on shorts? This next one is really vague and it was kind of like part of my home stretch goals as well in terms of figuring out how to approach this. but it is about refilling the well. I feel like I'm just on constant output mode and I need input mode in order to make the output, i.e. the content that you see, really good, really valuable, and also for me to enjoy the process of making it and be really proud of like what we're putting out there. So essentially, I want to be spending more time on coming up with ideas and research and development of videos, especially for the Hannah Witton channel. This channel is just a lot more casual, off the cuff, my life. This is kind of like Hannah Witton channel, sex education stuff specific. Speaking of stuff on that channel, another thing that we want to do is experiment a bit more with having guest hosts and doing collaborations. So you may have seen that we have the guest hosted episodes of Pleasure Trove, but we want to see what it would be like if we used our guests in a different way and had them doing different kinds of videos. But then also, I don't want to lose Pleasure Trove as a series and as a concept and a thing that we do here, because I do think that it is really fun and useful sometimes to be like, hey, here's some stuff that is going on in the like sex and relationships, sex positive world. Like here's a podcast, here's a TV show, here's a book. But now it's really about figuring out how do we package up that kind of content in a YouTube friendly way, because YouTube wants you to package your videos, i.e. like title and thumbnail, in a way where it creates like a curiosity gap. So you're like, ooh, what's that? I need to know. Whereas the Pleasure Trove videos, they're essentially just like a list. Like here's a list of recommendations. Is that even YouTube friendly anymore? I don't know. Would Pleasure Trove work better as shorts? Would it work better just posting recommendations on Instagram? Like this is all stuff that we're figuring out, and then as we reach out to guests who we want to have on the channel, we need to figure out like in terms of specifically who they are, what they're good at, what they love talking about, what kind of video we would want them to make for us. So that's where we're at, and also would love to hear your feedback if you have any thoughts and ideas on any of this. I think for me, it's still really important to have the guest hosted videos because it helps to free up a lot of my time when I'm still only working part-time. And then also it's like introducing you to new people and new voices. It's a way to make the sex and relationships channel more diverse as well, instead of it just being like me talking about my thoughts and ideas and opinions at you all of the time. So that's kind of my thinking around that at the moment. There's some experimenting to do and some figuring things out to do. Next up, in terms of the kind of like what videos should we make and the ideas list that we have. Every time that me and my producer sit down to kind of go through our current video ideas list and pick what we're going to be making next, there are so many ideas in there that it's like, I really want to make this. This idea is sparking so much joy for me, but we just don't have the time. And so one of the things I want to do is shift our priorities this year. So when we're faced with a video that's like, I really want to make this, this is great, but we don't have the time, what we actually do is we just make the time. Those are the videos that we want to prioritize making. And if you haven't kind of guessed already, but with all of these goals that I've been talking about and where our priorities are at, what this is going to potentially mean is that we don't upload weekly anymore on the Hannah Witton channel. I don't have a schedule in mind that I can commit to right now, which makes me anxious because I work best to a deadline and I work best on just kind of like a schedule, like of like keep on going, like that YouTube treadmill. But that's a thing that has been frustrating me for years. And so I think now is the time to finally like step off that YouTube treadmill, focus on the videos that I really want to make, even if they're going to take us longer to make, have the guest hosted videos as well, and hopefully we can be making some really exciting content for you on the Hannah Witton channel this year. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. With all of that being said, a kind of numbers-based goal is that I would like to get that YouTube channel back up to my pre-maternity leave views. So overall, like in general, like monthly total views, it's definitely gone down since I came back from maternity leave, which, you know, is just like one of those things that was a risk I was taking by taking 3 months off, which I think is partly to do with it in terms of like taking a break and the algorithm and blah, 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 blah. But I do think one of the other things is because I haven't been super proud of a lot of the videos that we've been putting out. We haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to really kind of making really great videos. It has felt like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Like, keep going. Like, I am working part-time and yet we have been putting out the same amount of content. That doesn't make any sense obviously the quality is going to suffer. And so that's why we're thinking of this shift this year, and then hopefully we see those views kind of like going back up again. Okay, that is all of the YouTube stuff. As you can see, I don't really have any goals for this channel. My main goal is just to continue having fun and just to make what I want on here. Which was the purpose of this channel when I first created it, and I'm glad that it is still serving that purpose for me. Next up, doing it podcast. So recently we've had a bit of a switcheroo in the behind the scenes of the podcast. We have moved podcasting distribution platform, and that has kind of led to a lot of things. Previously, I would get support with podcast editing. So I had an editor provided for me. I didn't have to pay for them. That was like part of the deal with that platform. That is no more. But we have a new wonderful podcast editor on board. However, what this does mean is that the expenses for making the podcast has dramatically gone up. But one of the exciting things about this is that they are going to be making more like social videos for us, like things to go on Reels and TikTok, which wasn't provided for before. And it also means I'm just going to be screaming about Patreon all the time. And I love Patreon, but essentially like Patreon is one of the things that majorly funds this podcast. And especially now that the cost of making this podcast has gone up, Patreon is going to be like a huge part of how we fund it. And so one of my goals this year is to more strongly connect the podcast and Patreon, because it's never felt like it's been that like, oh, I can see what is going on and what the connection is. It's been more like, oh, Patreon is kind of like a way to support all of my projects and the podcast is one of them, which is true, but I do want to kind of like create a stronger connection. So one of the ways that we are doing that is that we are starting a like Patreon exclusive bonus podcast episode. So after we are done recording the main interview with the guest, me and my producer Mia then hop on a call together and we record a unedited like mini episode called So How Was That For You? Where we debrief our thoughts from that episode, the topics discussed, our guest, but then we also kind of give you a bit of a like behind the scenes look on the podcast and how we work together, how Mia like researches and like finds the guests. Sometimes we rant about technical difficulties that happen, but we have recorded a bunch of these already, and at least one is already up on Patreon, and then from I think around mid-Feb is when every episode then going forward is going to have one of these So How Was That For You episodes. So I'm very excited about that. Also, as I mentioned with the podcast, we are going to be doing more Reels and TikTok. So that is hopefully going to be a thing this year, creating a Reels TikTok strategy. And similar with the YouTube channel, I want to get back to those pre-maternity leave download numbers, because the podcast has unfortunately also suffered because of my break. And one of the things that has been a real like, that is annoying is when we have like changed podcast platform, we have now like just dipped below like the line of downloads to be like officially managed or whatever. And maybe this is something that we'll talk about in So How Was That For You in one of the behind the scenes episodes. But essentially what it means is that we are very much just like an independent podcast now. Everything is like being paid for out of pocket, hence why Patreon being so important. You know, we're just a little old podcast, but hopefully really want to get back up to those numbers so that we can have more support from these distribution platforms to like help with cross promotion, help with like getting sponsors and all of that stuff. So yes, that is where we are at with the podcast. It is definitely going to be a bit of a wild ride this year. So I've already gushed about it enough, but here are some of my goals for Patreon. Of course, the So How Was That For You podcast. And then also the Handan podcast, which hasn't had an episode in a couple of years now, but it was basically where me and Dan would just sit down unfiltered, unedited, and just talk about a topic for like 20, 30 minutes or so. We're both really keen to like sit down and do more of these for our patrons, because we keep getting lots of questions like, what is Dan's perspective of labor and the birth? What is Dan's perspective on like being a dad, and like all of these things that he is keen to share for patrons in our Handout and podcasting. But you know, we just haven't had the time to like sit down, the two of us, and do that. But it is on my agenda this year. Hopefully we like crack Rowan's sleep. And so then in the evening after he's gone to bed, we can record some little podcast episodes together. Another one of my goals is to plug the Patreon more on the Hannah Witton channel and on the podcast. So I essentially just like want it to become like second nature to me, like in the Hannah Witton videos being like, thank you to patrons for like making this video possible. Like I want just to like get into the habit of that more. And then another thing I want to do this year is a big Patreon survey, because Patreon do not give you like excellent demographics of your patrons. And I just think it would be really fun for me, but also really fun for patrons to all like get to know each other in terms of like our average age and like where in the world are we all, and you know, all of that kind of fun stuff. And you know, I love a survey. I know you guys love a survey. That's something that I want to put together at some point this year. My next goals category is work-life balance, which is a capitalist lie. It doesn't exist. I read an article recently that was saying that because it's called a work-life balance, even in the name of it, it's implying that like work is in opposition to life and living. And yeah, okay. Basically the fact that we should all be treated as human beings at work, and we don't like put our human being and livingness to the side to then like be productive workers. No, 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 not here at Hannah Witton HQ. But essentially 2023, we have a new childcare schedule. So previously Rowan was doing 4 half days a week, and what that meant was when he was at his childminders for 4 hours with the toing and froing of dropping him off and picking him up, I would have 3 hours to get work done. That is not sustainable long term. So now what we have done is he is going to be at his childminders for 3 days a week. But hopefully that means that we can do more of these ambitious Hannah Witton videos, gives us more breathing room for developing ideas instead of thinking like, oh my God, constantly like, what's the next thing, what's the next thing? And it's just a better use of that time. I'm really glad we kind of eased in the way that we did, but I'm ready now to do some full days of work. Another goal for this year is actually moving out of the studio and working from home again. So like hopefully everything goes to plan with our house move, and then I'm going to bring all of my work back home. And then hopefully that will also help with a bit of this work-life balance. I know that like when I first got this studio, it was like, it helps with work-life balance because I can then like go to a separate space and like get work done. But now work-life balance to me like means something completely different, and actually having to come to a separate space is really inconvenient for me. So that's kind of interesting. And then my final goal in this category is don't plan to work evenings, except for the odd podcast recording when our guest is in a different time zone and in emergencies. That's the only time that I will hopefully be working evenings, but I often find myself like evenings are the only time that I get to do like video feedback and things, and I want to basically just really drill it in. Those are things that I need to do during my work hours. And if I'm having to schedule in work that has to get done in the evenings, like that's actually what I'm scheduling in, then something is going wrong and we need to like readdress the situation. So hopefully I can get my evenings back to do the Hand Down podcast and do more work. Yay! Oh dear. Next up is social media. I would like to be more active on stories. That is a really vague goal, but I love watching people's stories. I love how dynamic they are. I love just kind of like following people around in terms of like what they're doing for the day, or just like seeing little snippets of like their projects and their life and their thoughts on things. I'm just really bad at doing that. But I think stories is such a great and quick and easy way to like engage with you guys, and that's something that I really want to do. I just need to kind of like hold myself accountable to it. So that's why I'm saying this out loud. And hopefully, because I'll be working these full days, I will be less like go, 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 and have no time to like post any stories or anything. Fingers crossed. And then one of my other goals in this area is to actually remember to take pictures and make content when I am working with people or doing something cool for work. Because you potentially saw last year the Pleasure Trove episode with Noah and Corey. They were in my studio. We were hanging out. Did we take any photos together? No, but that is something that I just need to get better at remembering to do. And then finally, again, Reels, TikTok, having a little bit of a strategy for that, creating more of those, because I have really been enjoying making the ones that I have made, but I'm still unable to create a smart goal around Reels and TikTok. It's just do more. Next up, the newsletter. We have one goal under the newsletter, and that is to move to Substack. I think that is going to be the plan. Once we do this big like redesign, rebranding thing, then we're just going to like move that all over to Substack at the same time. And that is essentially because MailChimp is so goddamn expensive. And yes, it's probably worth it if you are using all of its features in terms of like email marketing and segmenting your audience and like messaging those people to sell them this and then messaging those people to sell them that. But that is not how I use my email newsletter. Like, it is not a marketing, like money-making machine for me. Like, the only thing that I really promote in it is Patreon. So I'm going to move it to Substack because Substack is free, obviously, unless you're charging people. But I'm not going to charge for my newsletter because that's kind of like what Patreon is for, like more of that like insider-ness. And then finally, miscellaneous projects. This is one that I've known that I've wanted to do for ages. I knew that this was coming up. Have I had the time to commit to doing anything about this? No. But my 2 5-year diaries, aka my epic 1 10-year diaries. I have one of those like a line a day diaries, and so then you can see what you were up to like on that day, like each year. And each book, each actual like physical diary is 5 years, and I have filled 2 of them, which means I have data, so much data on the last decade of my life. Like, that is incredible, and I want to do some sort of project with it, but it is going to be very time consuming because ultimately step 1 is logging all of that data. Like, I need to create myself a spreadsheet and I need to go through every page on those diaries and type up what I wrote down and then give that data to someone smarter than me or an AI machine and collect information, or like make it spit out like fictional diary entries based on the data it has. Anyway, this is something that I really want to do. Do I need to actually specifically carve out time to do this? Probably. Otherwise it's not going to happen. But it just seems like such a waste to like not do something really cool with the last 10 years of my life. Like, that's huge. I started writing in those diaries when I was at university. So much has changed. And then the other thing that I want to do, which I'm pretty sure was on my homestretch goals list, so lol, it hasn't been done, and that is to sell some Notion templates, because I believe that there is some interest in me like duplicating my templates, making them all fancy in a way that you can then use them for your own things, if that's like content planning, or what else have I made templates for? I made a template for like our house move and looking at properties. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, I've got a lot of different Notion templates that I've made. Every time something new comes up, I'm like, we have to have a Notion template for this. Like, am I also creating a Notion database for house renovation plans and things that we need to get and buy and do for the house? Yes, I am. So I just need to sort them out in a way that I can like put them up somewhere and then people can like buy them and download them or whatever. So there you have it. Those are my goals for 2023. I hope you enjoyed nosing a bit at my intentions and my priorities for this year, and I'd love to know your thoughts. If you are setting any goals this year, let me know. If you are just like not a goal setter at all, respect, that is fine. Happy New Year, happy 2023. I hope that you have a good one, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.